is something happened in this place, and we don't know what. So, as with a lot of these sites in Peru, they really need to be really looked at.
As you pointed out, it's got a pretty pronounced brow ridge here. This is probably done after death. This is probably not done during the lifetime. That's not trepidation. If you turn it over, you can see that there is a parietal here. It's been fused, but there's no evidence of this incum bone. There is two little holes here that we see for the Paracas culture, which this one has, which is very interesting. But this has a flat shape to it. Looks like it has been cradle boarded on this one. But this is actually different than the ones that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
This is what we would expect. But what we have been seeing is skulls without that sagittal suture and other anomalies, and we need to find out what that is. Why is that different than this?
I agree. We're here at Tiwanaku. At 13,000 feet, the wind's beginning to pick up a little, so I'm raising my voice to hopefully carry over the wind. We're in front of something we have no idea really what it was. Obviously, or maybe not obviously, at one time it was meant to be vertical. It's now been thrown down by something cataclysmic. We've got cracks in here and cracks in here. The corners are perfectly square. So if they were using some sort of a circular bit to create this, you would see a rounded corner. You don't see it. What's more astonishing is this little design, for lack of a better word. I believe it's utilitarian. It has a nice design element, but we measured these distances and they are exactly the same to within a 32nd of an inch. Brian was telling me these are basalt stones, and I want you to take a look at some of the joinery here. Absolutely incredible. I mean, who gets up on a Monday morning and decides to join stones with just multi-side polygonal shapes? It's absolutely incredible. And again, you'll see here no mortar anywhere. We're in another set of chupas here. There's at least 2 or 3, and there's remnants of others all in the area. This one is fairly intact. I want to point out something to you, which we showed in Watcher 6. These megalithic stones here, notice the joinery, how tight they are. Literally, these are weathered stones. They are in a curved, all the faces have been curved. There's not one, two, which is the same. And notice this area right in here. It's like whatever machine or whatever technique was used to mold these stones, they've left, and again, this is conjecture, but it seems like they have left something, just kind of moved away from it and left these impressions. We saw these in Cusco. We saw these at the gate to the Sacred Valley. We saw some of them in Ollantaytambo. They were sort of a signature of the builders. What astonishes me, that there's not one glyph here. There's not one signature of who the builders were.
Yeah, this is the coronal suture here. Right. So
I should be seeing a sagittal suture.
Yeah, I don't see any sagittal suture down here. I see the squamosal and I see the lacrimal sutures. But
so once again, we have the typical Paracas shape. Brian, this is like a Paracas skull.
Yeah, this is the, it's a corny term, but this is a cone head kind of style, which is typical of Paracas and the coast of Peru, the southern coast of Peru.
It does look like it's cracked up through here and down through here, so I don't think that's trepanation. Do you? I think that's probably something else, maybe.
I think that's a blow to the head.
Yeah, wow. That looks like more trauma than a trepanation hole. So
would you say it's a male or female based on what you're looking at? Jaw sort of.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a male because it's got some robust. This, of course, the zygomatic is broke here, but it looks like it's pretty robust on the mandible and the zygomatic over here. So I would say that's a male.
All right. Fire. Oh, thank you.
The patterns and designs on this 2,000-year-old fabric are so fine that only
the best craftsmen of the fabric arts would be doing this. The only reason they would be doing that would be for a royal personage. The finer the fabric, the higher the rank. Just like the finer the pottery, the finer the design work on a pot represents rank. So this clearly was a person of royal heritage.
Okay, I got it.
From underneath. Brian.
Just hold
I
it.
got it,
I think
I got it.
just hold it.
I got it.
Okay, I don't rip it. Oh. Oh my gosh.
There it is. That's it. It's coming off. There it is, up there. Okay.
Oh, it's
Wow.
amazing.
Look at that.
Can you hold it up, Joe?
It's okay.
So you still have that to come off.
Well, there he is right
And
there.
that's, oh my gosh.
Wow, look at that.
Look at how big that is.
Wow.
Lower jaw is trying to move.
That's natural, guys. That's no headboarding job.
We're here with, in the Paracas Museum with Dennis Senior Daniel Mendoza. Thank you for being here, sir. From your analyzing the skull, have you been able to determine its age and whether it's male or female?
A través del análisis que acaba de hacer, ¿cuáles son las conclusiones que usted ha llegado? Si es hombre, mujer,
Ya.
la edad del...
Me gustaría hablar un poco sobre lo encontrado de las piezas dentarias. En
He
realidad,
wants,
sí,
he would like first to talk about his finding on his teeth.
Okay.
el resto tiene 14 piezas dentarias.
Okay. It has,
Estamos incluyendo las del maxilar superior con las del maxilar inferior.
the skull has 14 teeth, maxilar superior y maxilar inferior.
Todas son piezas temporales, de
All
dentición
are-
temporal.
All are temporary teeth.
And
Correcto.
how many teeth do we have?
Con una edad aproximada, una edad dentaria, no una edad ósea, de 18 meses a 22 meses.
Okay, according to the teeth, the number of the teeth, the skull or the baby is 18 years old.
18 months,
18
18
24
months old.
months.
18 months old.
Yeah.
De 18 a 22 meses.
Approximately from
Aproximadamente.
18 to 22 months old.
Doctor, do you believe that this is a male or a female child? What is the sex of the child?
¿Cree usted, doctor, que es un niño, una niña? ¿Cuál es el sexo del bebé?
Hay la probabilidad que sea un niño.
There is a probability that it's a boy.
Okay.
Doctor, the overall condition of the skull, what is your evaluation on the condition of the skull?
La condición en la cual ha sido encontrado el bebé, ¿cuál es su opinión acerca de eso? ¿Ha sido encontrado? ¿Está bien? ¿Está mal?
Sí,
regular?
lo veo bastante conservado, bastante
It has
conservado,
been very well preserved.
y que parece que no ha sido expuesto al sol por el color.
And it seems because of the color, it seems that he was not in front of the sun. The sun didn't get into
O al medio
his,
externo,
on
o al
the
medio
external,
externo.
or the outside world.
Ernie, can you ask him to look at this tooth from the skull?
¿Podría, por favor, observar el diente del bebé? El diente que
La pieza dentaria que estamos viendo es una pieza temporal,
is a temporary tooth.
correspondiente a un canino.
Is one of the canines. Canino?
Canines.
Canines.
La pieza 5.3
It's the piece 5.3
del maxilar superior derecho.
from the right side, maxillar from the right side.
Y se observa la corona
And you can see
completa
the crown, which is complete,
y la raíz todavía en formación.
and the root that is on its shape.
En
que
formación.
tenemos todos nosotros. Había un grupo, nos han encontrado unos cráneos que antes de la modificación le sacaban por la boca todo el cerebro, como también las vísceras y los músculos, para para poderlo momificar.
In some of the studies, the mummification, when the person died, they took the brain through the mouth. That was one technique that they used.
That's also what the Egyptians did.
Interesting.
So the question is, did these people understand the function of the brain 2,000 plus years ago and regard it as being so special that it should either, was it taken out to be put in another container, or was it taken out and discarded?
Being in the museum for hours sometimes made everyone forget they were across the street from the delightful Paracas Beach, like another world. Later, we join Ron Moorhead and L.A. in a discussion about Sasquatch.
If this is what they are, that their maternal DNA, which is the mother's side, is human, and the father, which is the nuclear DNA, is something unidentifiable,
right.
Something else.
Which makes sense.
Right.
That fits our paradigm.
Right. Bigfoot could be a diluted form of genetic manipulation.
I agree.
And
I concur.
there's also the Native American lore, which talks about how they've taken their women, and that would have diluted them down again, but they're still not human, not like we are.
I agree.
But they are talking, they have
A language.
They have a language, and they are very smart. People are out there trying to shoot them unless it's by accident, and there have been reports of them being shot, but
just recently, right?
Yeah, pretty recently, a couple really.
And this gentleman,
don't worry with all that, but it's going to be played down by the media probably.
Sure.
But this is big stuff. Giants are here now, LA. Here, but we haven't found any yet, even though we had reports of them. Well,
we have had reports.
We had that just recently.
This trip, yes.
Just recently, yeah. And it's just so interesting. What's going to happen is alien intervention. And I don't know, 10 years ago we'd been thrown off a cliff for this, but now alien intervention
seems to be
coming to reality. The media is covering it in the movies all over. You see it everywhere.
The Book of Enoch backs that up, and even though it's not a biblical text, we can certainly appreciate its historicity. And the Book of Enoch states that there was a quid pro quo, something for something. The fallen angelic beings came down and gave technology and weapons to the men, and then they gave them the access. There's always that permission has to be granted. I want to ask you something. You told me a story off the record. Maybe you're not ready to tell me that, and of course if you're not, just say no, we won't go there. But you were hiking by yourself a number of years back, and you came upon a very large set of tracks. Can you tell us about that now? Would you feel comfortable?
Yeah, I say it now because I told you.
Well, but I've never told anyone.
Well, it's ridiculous how something that big could still be concealed.
Right.
Unless they are interdimensional, able to step out of this into another.
But that's it. Go ahead, tell the
story.
They were
26 inches long.
Right. The footprints.
The footprints. And there was a stride, a track trail, which was 13-foot stride.
Now let's stop. This was in a trail where?
In the Sierra Nevada.
In a very remote place.
Very remote. Nobody's there.
Nobody's there with a Bigfoot stamping a footprint every 13.5 feet.
No. I ran across these. All of us did. And we've seen them because we've been having this interaction with these things. They're tricking us, playing with us.
So do me a favor. This is roughly a 27-inch span from this little finger here to Ron's finger there. This is a 9-inch span. 9-inch span, that's 18. Have the rest, 26, 27 inches. That's a 26-inch footprint. You're trying to tell me that's what you saw, and other people saw that with you. That is one big dude. How many footprints did you actually see?
I've seen 4, probably 5, if I remember.
Okay.
This was in 1972.
All right.
And took a picture of one of the men standing at one track, and then my friend measuring the other track, and I was standing back here, and we measured the distance between the tracks.
13 feet.
It's unbelievable, and yet
It's a huge stride.
nothing. It has to be physical to make a track.
Sure.
But yet, how does something that huge conceal itself?
Continuing our investigation, there had to be an aerial inspection of the Nazca lines. It didn't take long for our plane to make it over the first set of lines. Franklin, our pilot, pirouetted over the best spots for us. These steep bank angles were a bit dizzying at times, but gave us the best view of the area. There were glyphs and incredibly long lines with geometric shapes that resembled airport runways. And then suddenly you'd see a large image, like this one, the hummingbird. Images quite similar to this have also been seen in crop circles. An amazing thing was how perfectly straight these lines were, stretching out in all directions for miles. And then it was over, and we were coming in for a landing.
But let me ask you something, Franklin. If you can only see them from the air, I mean, you really can only appreciate them from the air,
That's
right?
why they think they were offerings to the gods.
Offerings to the gods.
Would see it because
But Franklin, they're so perfect. I mean, how can someone draw like a hummingbird so big?
they said, I saw this on a video,
Yes.
a Japanese documentary. They made figures in smaller figures next to
Yes.
the big ones, you know, to start with.
Right.
They would put like a stick in the center. It would amplify sort of the most important points, and then use a lot of people to make the rest of the figure. But some of the figures would be really difficult to do, like for example the monkey. You can see that the tail of the monkey is spiral, but still it's not as that good made.
It's not perfect.
It's not as well, you know, as
Okay.
some other figures. It's more difficult than others.
While we were flying over the lines, we noticed a small tower near one of the main highways. It would give us an opportunity to get a closer examination of the actual surface of the land and the lines that were carved out of it. It was a small metal structure, only supporting 10 people at a time. So we had to wait until enough people came down before anyone else could go up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're in a tower that Maria Reich herself paid to have constructed.
Right.
To once again call attention to the lines. We've got two glyphs up here, two figures. You can see these glyphs very easily. What are we looking at?
They call it the Tree of Life. Whether that's what it is or not, we don't know.
Right.
But yeah, as you can tell, we're 30 feet above the ground, but you don't have to be in an airplane to see them. And then the one to the left is called the hands.
Rolly, the more you look at it, lots of fractured rocks are every place. Very strange. And I mean, I know there's like 3 or 4 different theories of how the lines were made, including space aliens and, you know, by the Nazca people. But this is, when you're actually on the site, it changes everything. It's like, wait a minute, you know, this is kind of difficult to do.
The basic composition here is you have this, you know, these darkish rocks, which is volcanic material. So that's either the result of ancient volcanoes being in the area and eroding or exploding or something, and they are on top of an ancient seabed. So the ancient seabed is made of very fine, silty, clay-like material. So the way that the reason why you get such a contrast here
Sure.
in terms of color, and why you can see the Nazca lines from the plains, is that by removing the surface dark material and exposing the fine light material underneath, it's that color contrast between whitish and reddish that does it. But and on average, you know, the Nazca lines are maybe about this deep.
Like 3 inches, 4 inches?
Maximum. So it's astonishing that they have lasted at least 1,500 years under these conditions. It basically never rains here, but you can see that there's wind.
Yeah.
And the wind, one would think that over time the wind would just obliterate them. The Palpa area has 1,600 geoglyphs and lines. The difference is that they're not on flat surfaces like this, they're on the sides of hills. So from the highway you will be able to see like half a dozen.
Wow.
The rest of them are in the folds of the mountains spreading way out. And these go from this area where we are all the way to Paracas, which is on the Pacific Ocean, where the Candelabro is.
And your theory is that the Paracas people actually made the Nazca lines? Is that kind of what your theory is?
I think they were the originators from the Pacific Ocean side, moving in this direction through Palpa, and then the Nazca took over. But it begs the question, why? I mean, this is this isn't thousands of hours of work. This is possibly millions of hours of work in an incredibly harsh environment.
Very harsh environment. And unless you had a water source, I mean, how are you going to basically make these lines? I mean, you've got people and you've got them out here and they're stationed here creating these glyphs. Well, that takes provisions. You have got to get a group of people who are bringing the provisions to the area, water, food, shelter, whatever, to keep the people working. It's quite a mystery. It's quite an undertaking.
So what I'm going to show you is how simple it is to expose the subsurface area and create an incredible contrast. And I'm doing that wearing sandals. But this is how obvious it is.
That's incredible.
See?
Wow. And you've got a Nazca line. There it is. Chase, you had an experience in a cornfield in Tennessee a few years ago. Tell us about that and what happened and what you saw.
I made arrangements to go out there to do a field investigation because he also said that this happened often. There was a huge cornfield and it was just down the road that his family owned.
When you say huge cornfield, 100 acres?
About 100 acres.
Okay.
And we jumped in the truck and we drove down there. By the time activity started, there were 7 of us in the field. And was very excited to show us that the lights were already starting to pop up. So,
wow.
He said, well, there's some now.
And this is broad daylight?
No, this was dusk.
Dusk,
It was about dusk.
Right.
And we literally saw these little lights. They were high in the sky, but they started all popping into the atmosphere.
Wow.
And they would gather together and kind of form together, and they'd move as a unit, and then they'd separate.
What color were they?
They were white, red, blue, all these little lights. Our impression was they were individual. It was probably about an hour after we had gotten there. The witness said, oh my gosh, Chase, here it comes. And he says, here comes that light. And he points up, and sure enough, I see this light starting to head into the atmosphere, but it's closer and closer to us. It's just strange. And then 2 more pop up. As it's coming, I start realizing these aren't 3 independent lights or 3 different craft, like what we were watching earlier.
Sure.
These were on a triangle. And at first it looked 3, but then you started seeing where the outline of the craft, it was becoming more and more defined. and it's starting to block out the stars.
Oh boy.
So, and it was...
How big was it?
It was huge. It was very big, and not...
When you say very big, give me an idea.
Well, one of the techniques that we used was to hold your arms straight out above you,
Right.
and if I opened a magazine, it would barely cover the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was very big. As it came forward, it...
Any noise?
Nothing. Nothing. It never changed direction. It never changed speed, altitude.
Was it
from
moving
what we
slowly?
saw. Very slowly.
Very slowly.
And it's hard
So-
to describe how it moved because you almost want to say it glided, but not quite. It wasn't flying. It wasn't drifting. The exact word and the way the atmosphere changes when you're in the presence of something like this, it's very hard to define because this is not our reality. It was
So this craft is approaching you now?
It's flying right over our heads.
And it's
right.
very large.
It's huge, and that's...
What were you thinking when this was going on?
I was excited. I was so excited because, you know, as an investigator since 1994,
Sure.
This is the first time I am looking at something that I absolutely know is beyond us. It has to be, just the way it moves and just the feel, everything about what was going on. And so I was excited. I'm picking up my cameras, nothing's working, I'm so frustrated because I have all of this equipment.
And we've heard this before in UFO encounters. When people encounter, they go to photograph things, the cameras don't work, all the electricity goes off, cars stop running. I mean, this goes with the phenomenon, supposedly.
Absolutely, and it couldn't be more frustrating because as an investigator, this is my one opportunity,
Sure.
my first opportunity.
And you're shut down.
Absolutely, and it's extremely overwhelming to have something like this right there, and there's nothing you can do to record it. All of a sudden, there was just this feeling, and I turned around and kind of asked everybody else in the field if they felt like they were being watched. Okay. And I said, and I don't mean from up there, I mean from down here. And before anyone could answer, and there was barely any time, there was this fear that just gripped. It was physical, LA. It like punches into you almost. It's just really hard to describe.
I'm very familiar with that feeling.
This is not fight or flight. This is times 1,000. This is every single cell in your body is very aware of a blind terror. I dropped my equipment. I literally dropped my equipment.
And your equipment's worth how many thousands of dollars?
Many thousands
of dollars. So you leave your equipment in the field.
Yes.
So you are genuinely terrified.
Absolutely. The witness was in front of me, and all of a sudden he stops. He moved a flashlight, and never so shocked in my life because standing 6 feet away was this little being about 3.5 foot tall. And I was so stunned. And the first thing that hit me was, oh my gosh, this is not that cute little Roswell alien. However, it was gray. It did have the black eyes, but they weren't the real big, wrap around almond, but they were almond shaped. The first thing I thought of after that was his legs were so tiny, twig-like. There it is right there, and it was the holy grail for ufologists is this little being, but we weren't supposed to be there. We were not supposed to interact. We were not supposed to do anything but get out of that cornfield.
What expression did it have on its face?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely
Did it gesture
nothing.
towards you in any way?
No.
Did it move towards you?
Nothing.
It just stood there.
And
you made eye contact with it?
Yes, yes.
What was that like?
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Back in the States, we continue our interview with Robert Salas. This time, he told us about his own abduction experience back in 1985. This is his first television interview of that experience.
Dr. David Jacobs believes that there's a vigorous breeding program that is going on between whatever and whoever these entities are in the human race. This experience obviously affected you, obviously profoundly so. After the incident, was there another time in your life where you had, let's say, contact with either UFOs or extraterrestrial biological entities?
Yeah,
I just started talking about this, and I'm still dealing with it. But yes, I have. My wife and I and 2 small children were living in Manhattan Beach at a particular house that we recall in mid-'80s. This occurs. We were asleep in the middle of the night, and I wake up to see a bluish light coming from what appeared to be the living room. And I woke up my wife. I said, "You see that light?" And she said, "Yes, I see the light." And I said, "I got to get up and check it out." I was pretty frightened that someone might be in the house, burglar.
Sure.
We had 2 small kids. So I start to get up, and all of a sudden I'm paralyzed. I cannot move my limbs. And I struggled. I really struggled and struggled because I was frightened because we had 2 small kids in the house. And my wife, I turned to her and asked for help. Couldn't move. And I was surprised to see that she was unconscious.
Wow.
I recall next seeing a figure in the doorway. Appeared to be a hooded figure. I could not describe the face at this point. I mean, I don't recall seeing specific features of the face. But then I'm aware that there's others in the room now. Next thing I remember is kind of floating off the bed and moving towards one of the windows we have in the bedroom. And seeing my wife lying there. I can actually see her lying in bed, unconscious. I approached the window thinking they, and I remember having this thought, they don't know how to open the window. The window's locked. I remember locking it the night before with a latch and thinking they don't know how to open the window. All of a sudden, I'm upright, going right through the window. I know this sounds very strange. It is very strange, but that's how I recall.
As Dr. Jacob says, everyone goes through the window.
I say, well, does the window in some way open by itself? And I say, no, it doesn't open by itself. And she says, I think I'm going right through the closed window. And she says to me, does anybody else ever report that? Not knowing that everybody reports that. What you're looking at when people fly through windows and walls and ceilings and this and that is future physics. Mathematically, it can be done if you do it mathematically, because if the Earth can be squashed into the size of a grape or a softball or whatever it is, everything is made up of molecules and there's space and right. So mathematically it's possible, but in our universe and in our level of technology, which is brand new, it can't be done.
Well, that's what I recall, going through the window. The next thing I remember, I don't remember being outside or seeing a craft of any sort at that point. The next thing I remember was being on a table and being shown, and they made a point of showing me this, a large, what looked like a needle. And by large, I mean large.
Thank you.
Almost a foot long. So they were going to insert it in my private area, let's put it that way, and they did. And they told me it was not going to be painful, but as they started to insert this needle or whatever it was excruciating pain. And that's point number 2 as far as why this was a real incident, because I recall the pain. I recall how bad the pain was.
Did you attempt to fight them at this point at all?
I think I was struggling because I yelled out that this is very painful. And as soon as I did that, as soon as I expressed that, the pain went away. It was just like magic. As soon as I expressed the idea that this was very painful, the pain went away. It was gone. and they continued with the procedure, whatever they were doing. So that's what I just told you is what I've derived from my own memories and also from hypnotherapy sessions I've had. Now, aside from that, I've had dreams, which I think are related to this. So this is in the box that I call may have happened. May have happened. You know, one of these dreams I see this large black oval-shaped eye right next to me, and I can see the glassy appearance of the eyeball. I can see actually some of this skin, I guess, around the eye, and it's right here.
Dr. Jacobs believes, and I know you know who he is. He's,
yes, David Jacobs.
Yeah, sure. Dr. David Jacobs believes that there's a breeding program going on, a very vigorous breeding program. There's an agenda that hybrid beings are being created. Now, when you were on board that ship, did you see any evidence of a hybrid being?
I don't recall seeing any evidence of a hybrid being. However, I think they did take a sample of my semen, and so we can derive from that why they did that.
Sure.
But no, I didn't see evidence of a hybrid program myself.
With everything that you've seen, and I realize that it's a very complex issue. On one hand, it seems like, gee, they're shutting down the silos. They don't want nuclear war on the planet. On the other hand, they're taking you against your will, shutting your wife down against her will, kidnapping you, because that's what it is,
right,
and doing things which you don't really want to have done to you. So with that in mind, do you think the phenomena, do you think their intentions are good or something more sinister? Or don't you know yet?
Well, I would not even want to speculate on that. I can rationalize the idea that if they want us to get rid of our nuclear weapons, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing
for
sure.
civilization,
yeah, it makes
for
sense.
humanity.
Fukushima, right?
Exactly.
In the old days, we used to say, and with their occupants, because if you said aliens, that was a line over which you did not cross. Aliens meant that you're going too far. Occupants, maybe there's occupants on board, maybe not. Then eventually the word became entities, and then the word became humanoids, or maybe there's crossing of that. They just couldn't say the word alien. They just could. Even now, people have trouble saying the word aliens. I have trouble saying the word aliens, but the fact is, they are aliens.
Peter Davenport has been collecting UFO data literally for over a decade now, and it's sort of a way station where people call up and tell him, I've seen an object, and he keeps track of all this stuff. And last April, there was about 350 sightings before the month of April. All of a sudden, it jumped to about 1,000 sightings a month. Fast forward to November 2013, it doubled to about almost 2,000 UFO sightings worldwide per month. And Davenport recently has gone on Coast to Coast and stated that he is alarmed at what he is seeing with all the increase of UFO activity. How does it make, what do you think when you hear that?
An acceleration of the entrance of interdimensional beings coming into the earth from another dimension via fallen angel technology. And this is difficult for people to grasp. I know it was difficult for me to grasp the concept that fallen angels, as you said in your talk the other day, the B'nai Elohim, the fallen angels having technology, it's a disrupting concept in terms of you don't normally, at least through religious tradition, thinking of fallen angels having technology. But as you know, when they descended on Mount Hermon and they began mating with human women in Phoenicia, they imparted technology.
Is there a hidden force that has been operating secretly on this planet literally for millennia? With these ancient megalithic structures that we see, are these the vestiges of this unseen force What about the Paracas people that were there? The elongated skulls that we see. Are these in fact some sort of hybrid beings, some sort of weird genetic mutation, perhaps even a Nephilim? We now have UFOs flying overhead in the infrared spectrum.
I got it. I'm filming a spacecraft. I'm sure it's a spacecraft.
Which of course we can't see with the naked eye. Robert Salas was abducted. He was taken against his will, and they performed horrible experiments on him. And then we have Bill's implant removal, where we all experienced high strangeness. That implant was cloaked. There was a power, a force, which was hiding that implant. It seemingly vanished. One prayer changed the atmosphere in that room, and all of a sudden, the implant became visible. And Chase saw what she called an alien being. Dr. David Jacobs believes that the breeding program between these entities, wherever they're from, and the men and women of Earth has reached its zenith. And that now we may be seeing hybrid beings integrate into our society. Could this be exactly what we read about in ancient prophetic texts, which warn of the return of the Nephilim? Dr. Roger Lear's testing of alien implants will one day be looked upon as a great scientific achievement. Dr. Roger Lear passed away on March 14th. He was a good friend of both Richard Shaw and myself. Roger, we miss you greatly.